Welcome to It Starts With Courage podcast with Kat and Jen. What is it? It's everything. Everything you want in life starts with courage. Okay, so guys, as we go through these episodes, we want to share your stories of courage that you guys have been sharing with us via DM or whichever means you've managed to find us. And I would like to say, Jen, do you remember the story that you told about your moment of courage with the Bell's palsy? And so I was in one of my groups. It was a 28-day challenge group, and there was a fellow, someone who listens to the podcast, and she said, Jen's story is exactly my story. And she's lived with Bell's palsy since, I believe she said since she was 12.
Wow.
Yeah. And she was just saying your story really resonated with her, and just how she's been able to overcome over the years and not let it take over. I hope she's going to share more. She said she's definitely going to share more for us. And then another one that I really wanted to mention is, so I had like a pre-listening party with a good friend of mine as we were traveling, and she listened to a conversation about hard conversations. Our podcast about hard conversations. And she's not the only person who's mentioned this to me, but some of my siblings have said this, that, you know, hard conversations with yourself are the toughest. A lot of us out there struggle with those hard conversations with ourselves, having to be alone in your mind, not even in your mind, but just addressing certain things that we avoid. And we may develop different behaviors in order to avoid these hard conversations. So I just really wanted to give a shout out and say, we're seeing your stories, guys. Please keep sending them in. We're going to continue reading more and more of these out.
Yeah, it definitely keeps us motivated. Like when you shared that message with me about the lady with Bell's palsy, that made me feel like we're doing something good, and giving people hope and helping to spread courage. And I would just like to say too, like, you know, we would really appreciate it if you find something of value in the podcast, or if there's someone in your life that you think like should hear this conversation. Like if what we're talking about maybe doesn't resonate with you, or it does, but you have a friend going through something very hard, or any of the topics that we talk about, please share the podcast with them. We would love to grow this and reach more and more people, and just have a positive impact on our followers and as many people as possible.
Definitely. You know what? I've also learned, I was just watching you as you're talking. When I was listening to the episodes in the car, I listened to how many times I'm like, yeah, right. So I'm consciously trying not to do that today, but you still hear me, and write it out.
Well, we're still fairly new at this, so like we need a little bit of grace on our and things like that.
But you know what's not new?
What?
COVID.
Oh gosh. It's going on like 2 years.
It's actually insane. So many people have heard complaining, not even complaining, but just talking about, obviously we're based in the United States of America.
America.
And there's so many different mandates coming about. Talk to me. What do you think about all of this?
Oh, well, I know it's not popular to be political or anything like that. And but I really do have some strong feelings about the mandates. And it's not one side of the aisle or another. It's just about us as Americans. I just feel really, really strongly that, you know, well, first of all, hold on. First of all,
I just thought of something.
This is not advice. This is not medical advice. If you guys are vaccinated, unvaccinated, you know, we are not trying to persuade you one way or the other to get vaccinated. We're just having a conversation.
Yes.
And we said that in the first episode that me and Kat are different. We see the world a little different. And so this is going to be one of those conversations where I see things maybe one way and she sees something the other. And that, I think, is the value of this podcast, is that you're not getting just one side of something like thrown down your throat. You're getting good, balanced conversation between two people that see things through different lenses. So
I thought you were going to say you're getting both sides down your throat.
No, not down your throat, but like here is kind of like where I sit with everything.
So tell us, what is this mandate, first of all?
First of all, the mandate is, like the president has said that everybody needs to get vaccinated, whether you've had COVID or not, whether you have health conditions or not. Every American or person in America should get vaccinated. He has said any company with 100 employees or more, they have to all be vaccinated or they will be fired. If the business owner doesn't adhere to the mandate, then they could be fined $7,000 per person that they do not fire. And so, God, I've been thinking about this all day, and
it's got so many people riled up. Like, I know some people are angry, all that stuff going on with Southwest.
Yeah.
Obviously people, in a way, I guess, like, it's almost people fighting for their right to choose.
Right. And to be honest, like, when we recorded this episode once before, and this was before the mandate came out, and I feel like everything has changed. So we're going to do this is our updated
talk.
Yeah, about everything. But we talked about before, our first one was the courage to get vaccinated or to be unvaccinated, right? Because it takes courage for both. Like, there's so much information out there, pros and cons of the vaccine, of getting it, of not getting it. It's almost information overload, and it's all coming from the government, which, call me a conspiracy theorist. Like, I don't trust them.
I'm going to jump in on that. But if anyone out there is wondering, where's the first vaccination podcast? Well, that's never going to be released. Things have changed. Not that we've changed in what we feel, but obviously things have just developed. And this is the podcast we're releasing on vaccinations.
Yeah. So back to now, we had the courage to get vaccinated, the courage to not get vaccinated. Now we have the courage to lose your job, be fired, lose your income, your stability for your family. You're having to make that decision as an American right now, and put your livelihood on the line to back up your decision on if you're going to get vaccinated or not.
Yeah.
And so
you said you don't trust that.
I don't trust the information. There's too much information. Okay, I listened to a podcast where a doctor was being interviewed.
Yeah.
And the doctor had just been, his rights to a number of different hospitals had just been revoked because he wasn't vaccinated. And what he was saying was, like the hospitals are getting money for every COVID patient. They get like $30,000 per patient from the government. And so, it all kind of like boils down to like they're getting money for these positive cases in the hospital. And then he was talking about when they have administered a vaccine, if somebody has a negative reaction to the vaccine, there's like a mountain of paperwork that has to be done.
Because it's new.
Right. But first of all, they don't really want to report the negative because they don't want to have to do this mountain of paperwork. And two, he said that they have been reprimanded as doctors if they report too many negative side effects?
It's a business, right? And I think sometimes depending on someone's level in the organization, definitely has an influence on which side of the coin they're on, right? I think that at the end of the day, what I see as the major issue for a lot of people right now is the fact that you're being told that you don't have a choice. And that's a big deal for a lot of people, because some people may want to get the vaccine, but for them, they're just thinking, not yet, or they're still doing their own research, which I definitely encourage people to do their own research. My personal opinion and thoughts on it are that in the short term, as far as I know, for as much research that has been done so far, it's safe, right? Just like anything, we're all different biologically. Our chemicals work differently. So the vaccine's going to affect people in a different way. It's like when people get the flu shot, right? Some people get really sick from the flu shot. Mm-hmm. But guess what? We've been doing it for for how long, right? Getting the vaccine doesn't mean that you won't get COVID. It just like wearing a seatbelt doesn't mean that you're not going to get in a car crash or.
Well, I think that you're right. It's past, in my opinion, it's past getting the vaccine and not getting the vaccine. The people at this point, with 75% of the country vaccinated.
Yeah.
The people that aren't vaccinated, I feel like, are more fighting for our freedom to choose than they are worried about taking the vaccine. And what I mean is, like, we as Americans, when we come together as people, are unstoppable. Like, this country is amazing. That's why everybody wants to come here, because it is amazing. However, and you're here. So this is this is what, like, I want to put out there. Like, if you remember anything from me on this podcast, is that, like, I feel like there's just this jump to judgment,
right?
When you see someone wearing a mask, riding their bike on the sidewalk with nobody, or in their car with nobody, like, you're like, oh, these people, they don't get it. They're by themselves. They can't give themselves the virus. When you are in Walmart or you go to Walgreens and you see somebody walk in, there's two types of person. There's the person with the mask on, and they're looking at the person walking in without the mask, and they're thinking, oh, just do your part. Right. Just do your part. Just put on a mask and do your part. And that person, first of all, that's walking in, their kid may be sick. They may have something going on. They forgot their mask in the car. It may not be intentional, but you as a person are jumping to a conclusion that this person is just not interested in doing that. So first of all, I would just say that the judgment of people is dividing us, is dividing our country. And I would just say that, like, for me, like, the people right now that are not getting vaccinated, that are not wearing masks, I feel like are standing up for our freedom as a country, because
even those people who are not vaccinated, like, I see what you're saying for those who are standing up for the not having to get vaccinated. But I mean, either one takes courage, no judgment. But if you are an individual, for example, who has decided not to get vaccinated, but you're aware of how this virus is transmitted, and you walk into a full room of people where studies have shown that even people who are vaccinated actually carry around the vaccine and not the vaccine, the virus. So you're more likely to catch, right? Yeah. So someone like that who's taken that decision of, not to wear a mask, not to get vaccinated, gets COVID, right? Now, obviously, being America dependent again on sometimes your insurance, right? You are now going to go and seek the services of the hospital, of the scientific world. The same people who come up with the treatments that you're going to get in hospital are the same people advising you on this vaccine. So sometimes my question would be, why are you willing to trust the science in their medicine to treat you, but not the science in their preventative,
in their vaccine,
or in their wear a mask? Yes, we get that there are different levels of mask, and someone will always say it's a cloth, it's like this. But at the end of the day, prevention is better than treatment. Treating a disease, if you can prevent it, you don't have to treat it.
And I think we were back there a few months ago. But now when people are being made and forced to do this, that's when the country has really been divided on this. And now they're not even, they're having to decide if they're going to take a vaccine, or they're going to put food on their table for their kids or pay their mortgage. And so this has really divided the country. So I guess we are a pretty positive podcast, and we don't really want to get super political in the world and turn anybody off to listening to us. But we do want to talk about hard things. And this is something that's really relevant in our country right now. The courage in this podcast is to have conversations with your neighbor, to seek to understand different people's point of view, and to come together as people and say, we're going to get through this. Right. To not throw somebody under the bus because they walk in without a mask, or they say they're not vaccinated. They have personal decisions they make. They may have a health decision or a religious, or they may just feel strongly against it, or they think their immune system is very strong. So I just feel like instead of looking at people that you don't know and making a judgment of who they are or what they believe because they are or not wearing a mask, that's not right. And we need to grow up as people and come together and support each other in our decisions. And we live in America. Yeah. Home of the free.
Some people don't live in America.
Well, we're talking about what's going on in America, but when you start encroaching on what people feel like are their freedoms of what to put in their body, then I think that's where we're really struggling right now as a country. And so I know we're going to wrap this up. We don't like long podcasts. I know.
But before you do, I did like it. I just wanted to touch on that you said we should be able to talk about this, in that you may have your opinion on whether, vaccinations are the way to go. And you may be on the other side where you feel like, I will not get vaccinated. I think being open to speak to somebody and listen to somebody, if you truly believe something, but you can't even stand to listen to the other side of the argument, how can you expect somebody to hear where you're coming from and understand where you're coming from? So you may just end up walking around feeling like you're the right one, but who's going to hear you? Who are you going to influence, if it is that you're trying to influence that your way or whichever way is the right way? We have to learn to listen to each other and talk to each other.
Absolutely. We have lost that ability to have conversations with each other and see other people's point of view and really determine well, should I feel this strongly, or can I now see the other side of the coin here? And that's all we're kind of asking people to do. We understand that we're in this crazy time in our lives, and we've been fighting this since 2019.
Crazy.
And I think we're just ready. But instead of being divided on yet another thing, let's come together and stop all the judgment.
Right.
Thanks for listening to this episode of It Starts With Courage podcast with Kat and Jen. If you like this episode of the podcast, visit our website, iswcpodcast.com, for show notes and other cool things.